Today on Film Learnin, we're doing this. I said, today on Film Learnin, we're doing this. I'm down. Good choice and exit right about now. Oh, it's about time. Hey guys, welcome to Film Learnin, the show dedicated to learn you some filmmaking and learn you good. And that's right, we're back in Thor Ragnarok to answer these requests. So a bunch of you asked for a Thor Bifrost effect. And of course, this is what we're doing today, clearly. And this is one I've wanted to tackle since the first Thor movie way back, God knows when.
Oh, all the way back in 2011. You jackass.
Now before we get into the effect, and just in case you guys are interested, that Marvel intro that you saw at the start of the video, that's actually from VideoHive and it's up for sale right now. I had a hunt around on the website and I found it and I just thought it looked cool, so that's what I used. You do need Element 3D to make it work, but it does look pretty cool and it's very, very easy to customize. So if you want to check that out, just head to the affiliate link down below and just click on that and help support the channel and get yourself a cool template. Now, in order to complete this effect, you need to shoot your actor holding up a hammer or whatever you want to hold up. I don't even care if you hold up a, what have I got here? Chewed on Thomas the Tank Engine ball? Maybe not. So in my case, and this is what I recommend, you shoot your actor from a couple of different angles. I did one front on, I also did one from a top down perspective. Now if you can get them completely top down, even better. My tripod doesn't go that high, so I was kind of stuck with what I got. Oh, and before I forget, if you want your actor to fade out in either of these shots, make sure you grab a background plate. Preferably with nobody in it, because that's what a background plate is. And of course, what would it be without a download pack? So you need to head to filmlearnin.com/downloads and download our Bifrost pack, which includes a colored Bifrost pattern that's all ready to go. And if you don't like things easy, there is also the opportunity to make your own custom Bifrost effect. I've got 5 different passes of anime speed lines, which essentially that's how I built this thing with the anime speed lines pack. Just chuck them together, colorize them, and you can make your own Bifrost effect. Pretty cool, huh?
My God.
And of course, we also have that cool pattern that the Bifrost sort of burns into the ground whenever Thor is transported anywhere. I don't know what that's called, so I'm just going to call it the Bifrost pattern thingy. Yeah, that'll do. Now guys, you also will have to head to actionvfx.com into their free section, which you can see right on screen right now, and we're going to grab the burn textures, and we're also going to grab the smoke plumes, and if you like, you might as well grab all the rest of the stuff here, because it's all really awesome and really handy. And guess what? That's it. Now, let's get to work, shall we? Okay guys, here we are in After Effects and I've got my shot set up in a comp and ready to go. Now, as you can see, I'm already holding the hammer, so our Bifrost can come at any time. Now today, I'm going to be using the colored Bifrost from the pack, mainly because I made it and it makes things so much easier. Now, this effect is essentially throwing this thing in, animating it slightly and shaking the camera. But for the sake of the tutorial, let's get into it. So first things first, for those of you who want to add some depth to your Bifrost beam, we're going to separate our actor from the background very roughly, as we're really not going to see how bad this thing looks with everything going on. So let's duplicate our footage. Then, with the top layer selected, let's grab the pen tool and draw a very rough mask around the outline of our actor, which is easy since they aren't moving at all. Once that's done, let's hit F and feather this thing out a crap load, like 300 pixels or something stupid like that. With the background layer showing the exact same footage, you aren't going to notice how bad this looks, so it's okay. Right, let's get our Bifrost beam in there. Grab it from the project window right here, and drop it straight on top of everything, and of course, change the transfer mode to screen. Now first off, something seems well off to me, and that's the width of our beam. I don't think these beams are wide enough at all. So my first step here is to hit S to bring up scaling, and I'm going to unlink our scaling by clicking this link button right here. I then might stretch the width out to say 200. That looks a bit better for our background layer. So let's drag this one down and put it below our 2 pieces of actor footage. As you can see, it looks terrible, but as a background effect, it'll do. Let's now follow that up by animating this beam before we make the rest. Just to save us some time, let's head around 9 frames into our timeline. There we are. Hit P to bring up position and hit the stopwatch. Let's then move 1 frame back. Boop! Let's then use our position controls to move our beam straight up off screen. There we go. If we turn motion blur on for the layer and the comp and check out a preview, well, that looks like balls. So let's keep going. Firstly, let's follow that up by duplicating our beam footage, dragging it above everything, and just to make it a bit different from our background beam, let's increase that width to say 280. Wow, that is nice and thick. But it's not quite blurry enough for me yet, so I'm going to head up to Effect, Blur and Sharpen, and grab a fast box blur and set the amount to say 5. Now, since I want it to be a tad glowier, that's not a word, but screw it, I'm going to duplicate it twice more by hitting Ctrl D twice. And just to be extra anal, I'm going to head to the top layer and up that blur amount to 8. Our next step is adding a bit of smoke or dust to our scene by way of our buddies at Action VFX and their free smoke plumes. I've grabbed one and I'm just going to drop it straight into our comp. Bam! Now we've got a problem here. The smoke is black and the background's white. So let's head to Effect, Channel, and grab Invert. The white background is now black, the smoke is now dust, and we can change the transfer mode to screen. Now I like this smoke, I really do, but one thing it ain't is fast. So we need to speed this thing up because it's supposed to be accompanying the beam. So let's right click on our layer, head up to time and select time stretch. And I'm going to bust this thing down to 5, which means it's going to go really fast. Much better. From there, we just have to flip it upside down by going to Layer, Transform, and hitting Flip Vertical. Lastly, I'm going to hit S and scale it up to 400%. And there we go. And then finally, move it off to the side of our beam. I'll then duplicate that and move it over to the other side of the beam. Now if we check out our preview, you might feel that this looks okay, but it's missing something. Mainly because it is. The camera shake, guys. You can't have a Bifrost without a camera shake. It's a massive blast of energy, right? So let's grab everything by hitting Ctrl A. Let's right click and select Pre-Compose, and select Move All Attributes and hit OK. From there, let's head to Presets, and because I have Red Giant Universe installed, I'm going to type Shake and use the legacy version of Red Giant's camera shake. But you can grab either a demo of Universe or use your own camera shake plugin of choice. Well, this one's mine, so I'm just going to drag that onto my footage, making sure I'm on the first frame. Next, I'll set the amount to 0. We'll head to frame 9 and hit the stopwatch on amount, and skip ahead 1 frame again, and crank it up to 3. If we check out a preview of this shot, the hammer's up, the beam comes down, we have smoke, colors, and the camera is having a seizure. Nice, huh? This shot is done. But there is 2 other effects that are in our preview footage, and they are both pretty easy too. Firstly, our actor being taken up by the beam is super easy. If we head back to our original comp, we'll simply add our background plate, like so. And from there, we'll head to near the end of the comp, say here. We'll then select both of our actor footage layers, hit T to bring up opacity, hit the stopwatch and skip ahead say 3 or 4 frames and crank it down to 0. It's a simple fade really. We can then enhance that easily too by heading up, grabbing a new adjustment layer, and from there we'll head to Effect, Color Correction and add Exposure. Head back a few frames before our fade, right here. We'll then hit the stopwatch on Offset. Head forward a few frames just before the fade ends, around here, and we'll crank it up so the screen is all white like so. We can then head forward around 7 to 10 frames and set this back down to 0. The end result is a flash of light and your actor is gone. Now the burn mark, this one's a little bit trickier, but not by much really. But you might have a different approach to this, so feel free to experiment. Mine is not the be all and end all, guys. Firstly, I've got my shot set up in a new comp. I'm then going to grab the pattern Photoshop file from the project window and drop it in. And of course change the transfer mode to overlay. Now that looks a bit too harsh for my tastes, so I'm going to hit T and bring the opacity down to say 60%. Much better. From there, I want to position it into place to suit my shot. So I'll make it 3D by clicking here, and then I'm just going to fart around with the position and rotation controls until it looks good to me. There we go. Next, I want to add a little fire to proceedings just to show off that it's actually been burnt into the floor. To do that, I'm going to grab a new solid, head to Effect, and grab Video Copilot Saber. And from the preset menu in Saber, I'm going to choose Heat. We'll then head back up and make sure our custom core settings are set to Layer Masks, and then we'll change the transfer mode on the solid to Screen. There we go. From there, it's just a matter of going in with the pen tool and drawing little bits of fire wherever you want. You can do as few or as many of these as you like, and the end result should look a bit like this. Next, smoke baby! And all I did here is grab a dust wave from Action VFX and drop a few copies in. Nothing harder than that. So, this looks pretty good, but I've left one thing out, the beam leaving, right? Right. But before we continue on, I just want to do one more thing just to sell the effect that this is burnt into the ground just a little bit more. And to do that, I'm just going to grab some of the burn textures from the free section of Action VFX, drop them in, and just lower the opacity just so we get a little bit of scorching around the edges and just around the burn texture itself. It's pretty easy, just drop them in, lower the opacity, make them 3D, and put them wherever you want. Now there's a whole bunch of these burn textures available, so you can use whichever one you want. I'm just using one because it's just easier as far as the tutorial goes. We've got one more step to help sell this pattern being generated. So first, let's duplicate our pattern layer by hitting Ctrl D, and I'm going to change the transfer mode to Screen, and let's add some effects to this. Firstly, let's start with a glow, because who doesn't like a glow? We'll change the type to Alpha Channel, lower the threshold of the glow to 50%, and up the radius to a ridiculous 475. We'll then increase the intensity to 10. Now I know this looks a little bit weird, but stick with me, it's going to get better. Next, let's head up to Effect, back to Blur, and grab CC Radial Fast Blur. Let's then set the center point to the corner right here. Done. I'm then going to crank the amount to 99 and set the zoom to brightness. Okay, that's a little bit too harsh, so let's soften that a bit. Let's head back to Blur and grab a fast box blur. And all I'm going to do here is set the amount to say 5 and hit repeat edge pixels. Now, we've got this glow, but we want it to fade out along with our beam exiting. So to do that, let's just hit T, head a few frames in, here's fine. We'll then hit the stopwatch on opacity, head 5 frames forward and crank it down to 0. Nice. Now you could go nuts here and animate the light streaks and all of that, but I think this is okay for now. When the camera's shaking and everything's going on, you're barely going to notice this. Alrighty, let's add the beam. Now this requires a bit of farting around, gang, so I have prepared one earlier like so, but I'm going to show you how I made it. Firstly, grab the beam footage and drop it into its own comp. We're then going to select the beam, head to Effect, Perspective, and grab CC Cylinder. Now you can screw around with these settings all you like to suit your shot, because they might be totally different to mine, but as a base, I've set mine to a radius of 132, and then I follow that up with a fast blur that's set to 8. From there, we need to add a camera, since this beam is now 3D-ish, and that's how you move around it. So let's head up, grab a new camera, and hit OK. The default settings will be fine. We can now grab the unified camera tool and move around until we're in the right position. Now guys, this can be a bit of a pain, but persevere. You can also use the rotation controls within CC Cylinder, these ones right here, to adjust the position as well. But once you have the camera and the beam in the right position, let's then duplicate it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now the first one, we're going to leave alone. But the second one, we're going to make the cylinder slightly smaller, and by slightly I mean down to 32. And then you can move that around from there, just to get it into place. This is just to give the beam a little bit of layering, really. I'm also going to grab the top layer and shrink that down to around 86 and reposition it as well. The end result looks like this. I can now head back to my burn pattern comp and add my beam. And then I'm going to change the transfer mode to Screen. Now all we need to do now is have it leave the screen, and we'll do that with scaling. So hit S, I'm then going to head around to frame 6, hit the stopwatch on scale, and also hit P and hit the stopwatch on position, just in case we need to adjust the position. We'll head forward say 4 frames, or just after our glow is faded. I'm then going to scale it up until it's almost completely off screen. If you need to position it, do it. I ended up scaling this up past 1600%. We can then cut this layer by trimming it to end on this frame. There we go. The end result is the beam jumping out of frame like it's getting sucked back up to Asgard. Now if you like, you can add an adjustment layer with an exposure effect, just like our last shot. I did, but it's up to you whether you do that or not. The steps are already here in the tutorial, so I'm not going to repeat it. And of course, the last step here is to add a camera shake as well. The main difference with this one is that it's going to work in the opposite way to our last shot, meaning we'll start with the camera shaking and then animate it down to 0. So as you can see, it starts on 4, I head to the point where the beam exits, crank it down to 1, and then I head forward around 10 frames or so, and then I 0 it back out again. And the final shot looks like this. And that, my friends, is another effect. Done. Add up all those steps and you get something like this. I'm down. Good choice and exit right about now. Oh, it's about time. So guys, that's my take on the Thor Bifrost effect from Thor, Thor the Dark World, Avengers Age of Ultron, and Thor Ragnarok? Anyway, that's my take on it. As you can see, it's actually pretty easy to make this effect. Just a whole bunch of lines and a little bit of fluffing around. But for now guys, that is my time. If you did enjoy this video, please smash that like button. I really do appreciate it. We are well on our way to 90,000 subscribers. I mean, it's just insane. So thank you very much for that. It means the absolute world to me. And hey, if you haven't subscribed, why not hit that subscribe button right now? And if you are subscribed, make sure you turn those notifications on because some people haven't been getting the notifications that we've been putting out a new episode, which kind of sucks. We also have 2 other episodes right here that are Thor related, as well as a playlist up here which has some stuff in it. My social media crap is above my head, Facebook, Twitter. Make sure you check that community tab guys. And until I see you again, when I unbox that Action VFX box, which I have no idea what's in it, keep learning!